Hey Jenny, how's it going?
Hey, welcome.
Welcome. We coordinated our colors again.
It's hard when you're in the UK, right?
Yes. Is my audio's coming through
I
okay?
can hear it okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah, how are
Awesome. How are you
you?
doing? I'm doing
I'm doing
well.
good. What time is it where you're at?
It's 7:30, so it's
Okay,
not too kids
bright
are
and early
downstairs.
still.
Yeah, yeah, you guys aren't you're like 12:30, right? Your
Yeah,
lunch?
yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so tell me
Good.
about grad school.
Uh it's amazing. I mean, Cambridge is literally the coolest city in the world. And so that in and of itself is just really amazing being at a university where people care about knowledge and challenging things and diversity of thought and art and music. So that's really cool. Other than that, it's a 1 year program, so it's incredibly intense. I don't think I've been able to catch my breath, and I don't think I will until September. So yeah. What about you? What's new with work? What's the latest with the BookSmarts? Is that what it's called?
BookSmarts. Yeah, so I would say the latest is I got a buyout offer from a billion-dollar company, which was
Wow.
kind of an honor.
Congratulations.
I turned it Yeah, that was kind of fun, and I turned it down.
Hmm.
Um, and my girls were saying, don't sell us to the man kind of thing. But I had a call right before you, and we are going to partner, and I'm really excited about that.
Oh,
So yeah, so we'll be rolling that out in the next couple months. I don't know all of what that entails. We're trying to build it out, and he said it can kind of be up to me what that looks like. So I don't exactly know, business is kind of a moving target, and as is motherhood. So
mm-hmm.
um, which is what we're going to discuss. But kind of as a prelude to this, Rachel, I'd love for you to tell the audience. I know you don't have quite as many followers on Instagram as you do on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
but please introduce yourself and tell everyone what you've done, what you're doing. I love that you're going to grad school with kids and your husband, so maybe you can explain what's happening.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, I started out, well, maybe I'll go back a little bit further. I started out as a high school English teacher. Like this is where my career began. And I chose the job because it was a mom job, and that's what I had been told I needed to do. And I really loved it. But after I got pregnant with my second, stepped away from the career, thinking, oh my husband will provide. Those are the roles we're supposed to fill.
Right.
Long story short, that's not how it worked out. And I ended up jumping back into a startup in an off season of teaching, just to kind of help make ends meet, and fell in love with the work, found that I was fulfilling a lot of ambition there, and also found that there was a massive need for women and men to be better allies for each other in the workplace. Unfortunately, there's still kind of this zero sum mentality in the corporate world where we think that like men and women have to push against each other or compete for positions. And I just don't believe that's how it works. So that's kind of how I started doing the content creation, the thought leadership on the side. As you mentioned, I do a lot more on LinkedIn than I do on Instagram, but yeah, that's what has landed me
Okay.
here.
Okay, awesome. So explain how you went from corporate to being in grad school and that shift with your spouse.
Yeah, so I've been looking at doing a master's degree for a while. I'm a big believer in continuing education. I know it's not financially viable for everyone, but for me, I just love learning and love the classroom, and knew I wanted to get back to it. So I'd been looking at programs for a while. I was really interested in the international option because I wanted my kids to be able to come along, and I wanted it to be a really meaningful experience for them to see that the world is big and we are small, and there are people who think
Yeah.
differently than us, and that we're going to be challenged our whole lives, and that growth is the only way forward. So I had applied to Cambridge and Oxford, got into both, ended up getting a really good scholarship to Cambridge, so I moved forward with this school and have been in the UK since September of last year.
That's so cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm proud of you. So Rachel and I met, we were on a panel at the University of Utah Women's Symposium, and we spoke together and talked about women in business and leadership and kind of challenging some of these really hard and fast rules in the culture and all the things. So that's kind of the segue into what we're discussing today is how can we challenge that? How can we push forward and change a lot of those ceilings that can be limiting? And a lot of it often I think is just our own limitations that and beliefs that we hold. Um, so my first question for you, Rachel, is how has your perspective on balancing work and motherhood evolved over time? And what mindset shifts have been most transformative for you?
Mm. I love the question. I think I will flip it back to you as well
Okay.
because I think we all go on our own journeys of that evolution. For me, I wouldn't say it's been a 180 because I actually kind of had the privilege of having my kids before I jumped into my corporate career. So that alignment, that value wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't like I started my job and then bosses were asking, well, are you going to have kids? Or are you going to get married? You should
Right.
probably wait. And I felt this tension. That wasn't the case for me. When I started my first corporate job, it was because we had $87 in the bank
Right.
account and I needed to feed my kids. So for me, they were always a part of my career ambition. And I think that's really been a benefit to me that my career goals have never been separate from them. They've always been together. And even coming out here, being here in Cambridge, I wanted my kids to see that a mom could go back to school, could uproot her family, could change their life in order to grow herself professionally and make a positive impact in the world. So for me, I shared a little bit of my origin story, so to speak. So the opinions of what women's work looks like and what their involvement with family looks like has absolutely evolved. But I
Mhm.
still really hold dear the priority that you can be a present parent and be a girl boss at the same time. I don't think those are mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
What about you?
I love that your husband supported you in doing that. I
Thank
think that takes a lot. So my journey was I really wanted to be in finance and work on Wall Street and all the
you.
things. And my husband decided he wanted to go to med school. So I worked out of necessity because again, we didn't have $2 to rub together. I had to work. I had two kids at home. I had a 2.5-year-old and a 6-month old.
Mm,
I'm living in my parents' basement while he's doing rotations, and I needed to get a job. But I could not get work remotely. It wasn't a thing. And so
mm,
I had to create it. So it's a struggle, but I had an interview with I think it was US News and World Report, and they were trying to ask, what that looks like for women and how do you balance it? What do your kids think? So I asked my kids who are now teenagers, I said, how did you guys feel about me working? And my son said, I didn't know you worked.
wow, really?
Yeah. And my kids to a large extent were absolutely clueless. They had no idea I was working. So that was kind of a compliment, and I was actually really surprised because there's so many times when you're on the phone and you're in the bathroom like, I'm on a call trying to, seclude yourself somewhere where your kids can't hear you or get to you because you have to finish a work call. At least I've had a lot of those. um, or you have to take a nap because I have to work during your nap time
Mhm,
or when you go to bed at night. I've felt that a lot. But I felt like I work for my kids.
mm,
They're not mutually exclusive. I'm not choosing work over them. I worked for them.
yeah.
And so I had to. And I am really grateful and proud that I did. Now I'm choosing to.
Mm,
And I feel like they're proud of me too. So I, kind of had a family council with him the other day and said, this is what things look like. How do you feel about this? You're my number one priority, but I wanted them to be involved in the discussion and have a say,
yeah.
you know, and ask them, hey, are you getting enough attention? Do you feel like your needs are met? And we can shift as a family if that's not the case. But I wanted their voice to be heard. So anyways, I don't know, what that would look like to uproot the family, but I am so proud of you and I love that you're doing
Oh,
that and I think it's awesome. So,
well, thank you. And I think it's so impressive that you made the solution that your family needed. I think sometimes we get stuck in this way of thinking that, oh, I can only hold X job, or I can only do Y position, or in this area or in this industry. And you said, well, why don't I just build it myself? Unfortunately, I think sometimes women are afraid to be builders because we just don't see as many founders that are women. We don't see as many women in the suite. And so I think the fact that you just have the courage to go do it is what more women need to see. So I love that. That's an amazing
See,
journey.
and I don't even know that I had the courage or the choice.
Mm,
It didn't even feel like a choice. It felt like an absolute necessity. I've got to move and I've got to do something. So it's
yeah.
interesting looking back and seeing that compounding growth and progress that you don't see on a day-to-day basis. You know, it is this hockey puck graph where the momentum, the day-to-day grind, it feels like a grind and it feels like you're not moving, and then it kind of takes off. So
Mm,
I do think women limit themselves and think, oh, I can't do this. I had a woman email me and say, actually, she texted me, she's in my neighborhood, and said, I've been out of the workforce for 20 years. I know you might know some women in the space. How can I get back into the workforce? And, you know, what I tell women who are doing that is don't apologize for being a mom. Don't apologize for some skill sets you think you don't
yeah.
have. You focus on what you do have, and you act like a boss, and you just fake
Mm-hmm.
it until you make it, which is what everybody does anyways, right? Is okay, I'm going to do my very best. I don't know everything, but I will figure it out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's such important advice for women who, whether they're transitioning into their career or whatever, if they're looking for that next promotion. Maybe we can shift to that topic, because I know you wanted to talk about kind of like what advice you might give to those women. I
mhm,
love that you said just go for it. I think I definitely had to fake it until I made it. Like I said, I was a teacher and then I jumped into tech, and for me it was actually really freeing because I didn't know anything. It was a brand new industry. And so the only thing I could do is ask questions and take courses and Google acronyms that I'd never heard of before. So for me, it was
yeah,
actually an opportunity to gather all this new knowledge. So I think I would probably double down on that advice. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be
right.
afraid to look stupid, because you actually don't. Like,
Yeah,
nobody's looking at you and thinking, gosh, why did she ask that question? Probably somebody else in the room is
right.
grateful that you had the ask.
No, I totally agree with you. I've had my moments where I was afraid to ask. And now that I have employees, I can tell the people that actually have the right skill sets that I want in an employee because they're asking those
Mm.
questions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I've struggled, I've navigated things, but if I have an employee who is hungry and ambitious and, hey, can I help with this? Or, hey, Jenny, and they keep just asking me the questions, I love that. I want, it's that personality set that I need in employees rather than all the skill sets that they assume that they need. Right.
Yeah.
So if I have an employee who will Google it and ask questions, those are the employees that advance really quickly. And those are the people I want
Mhm.
to make.
Yeah. I heard one of my professors last month had said something that has stuck with me, stayed with me. He just said leadership is not hierarchical. And I've thought about that so much. It's what you're expressing, right? Good leaders come in every level of the
Yeah.
organization. And when you see the curiosity, the empathy, the
Yes.
willingness to take risks, like those are the leadership traits that you want at every level of your
Right.
organization. And so I don't want women to feel hindered by their title or their level in the
Right.
career. I think you can show up as a leader and make an influence in your organization, regardless of what your role is.
I totally agree. And in fact, I just noticed Audrey Carlson joined our live, and Audrey's an employee of mine. She was actually a swim coach for my daughter
Oh,
and
fun.
a friend. And she's having kids leave for college and needed more employment. And I heard that she was looking for work in tech and computers. And I said, Audrey, can you come work for me? What does this look like? Can we make this
Mm-hmm.
work? And I love that. And again, it's that personality type of being a hustler. And I know that she is being a leader in her realm. She's on data entry right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see the support she gives all of her coworkers. And I know a lot of my coworkers do that, but I'm pointing her out because I see that she's on here. But But I feel like she's kind of the group therapist and friend, and it's this cohesion. She's this glue, and I love that. And I look at her and some of these other women on my team that I'm like, let's go. I look to promote you as quickly as possible. Keep doing what you're doing. I do feel like we have some big things coming, and I need everybody to show up in their very best way, and we will advance them as quickly as possible. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. I think too, you touched on this a little bit, but that unique aspect, right? That authenticity that you bring is oftentimes your biggest competitive advantage.
Hmm.
And again, I think sometimes as women, we sell ourselves short and we say, well, I need to be more masculine. I need to show up as more aggressive or as more dominant, when actually that is not what the
Right.
workplace needs. What the workplace needs is more of that natural feminine energy
I
that
agree.
you have. I know you maybe have talked about how you can make your uniqueness a strength. And is there anything that you would want to share on that? Like what should women be leaning into more to make sure that they're focusing on their competitive advantage?
I think women have this attentiveness, this kindness. Obviously I'm generalizing here, but I had a client say to me, Jenny, I'd so much rather work with you than a 50-year-old fat white CPA. It's like the stereotypical CPA, right?
Uh-huh.
And he looked at his options and thought, she looks fun. Or maybe it was because I was younger. It was definitely because I was the only girl in the room to choose from.
Mm,
100%. And as soon as he said that, that really resonated with me, because I was very new in my career. Before I would go on appointments, I would ask my client, hey, what things do you need help with? And I
mm,
would do more
mm,
research before the appointment than I actually spent at the appointment to learn it, because I wasn't an expert at everything. People
yeah.
think, oh, it's you have a business, you know everything. No, you don't. You have to figure that out. Just like I hope my employees lean into that and push themselves to learn and figure things out. So
Mm,
I could tell I had something,
yeah.
and it was my femininity, and it was that I was the only girl in the room. And there is
Mm,
something to be said about being personable and being fun and being kind and approachable. All the things that, whether you're male or female, you know, you stand out. You don't have to be, like you said, that masculine, aggressive person in the room.
yeah.
You want to work with people that you can get along with, that you can rely on, and that are going to come through for you.
Mhm.
So I could see that that was something unique, and I think I've had a lot of opportunities because I am a woman.
Mm,
And people need women at the table. They have different, round tables, and they're really hoping women will show up. And not everybody can do this, and not everybody has the confidence to show up. So when you're thinking there's no room at the table, I think often people want you at the table. You just don't realize that there is a seat for you.
mm,
You just need to take your seat up to the table. And if there isn't a table, or a seat, like in my situation, I couldn't find work, you create it. You make
yeah.
it. You ask to be invited, if I have employees that ask, hey, can I show up here or can I go to this? I love that. That
Mm,
shows that they're vested and they care. And those, again, are the women that I want on my team.
mm. I love that. I think too, one of the things that I've had to learn is that I'm not going to be everybody's cup
Mhm.
of tea, and I'm not going to want to join every
Yes.
table. I think probably early on in my career, I feel like I had to say yes to every opportunity, and I'm glad that I did,
Yes.
because I learned a lot very quickly.
Hmm.
However, as I'm getting older and I'm learning how precious my time is, and how challenging it can be to balance my priorities with my children and my priorities with my work. I don't need to be everywhere,
Right.
and I don't be liked by everyone. I still want to be diplomatic, but I've had to learn that oftentimes, your reputation is outside of your control. The way people feel about
Right.
you is totally outside of your control, but I can control how I show up, where I show up. And if there's not a place where I can be authentically me, I am privileged enough to be at a point in my life where I just walk away.
Yeah.
It's if there's not room for me as I am, then I'm not interested. And
Yeah, I love
so,
that. I think I'm in a position where my PR team is saying, hey, we need you here. You need to do this. You need to do
mm,
that. And I felt this real large sense of overwhelm. And
mm,
it's emotional. It's the change of losing my mom. It's the change of having my daughter leave on an LDS mission. She
mm,
showed up in Paris today, and I feel the need to kind of hunker down.
yeah,
And I don't want to show up at everything. I I told them, I want you to cancel this, I want you to cancel this, and I want you to cancel this because I need a minute.
yeah,
Because life is hard and it is not static. Life is not static. It's super dynamic.
mm,
And I think it's a moving target. And sometimes you might need to shift more towards your personal, and sometimes you might shift more to work.
yeah,
And it's a moving target, And this week I'm filling it with, I need to take my sister-in-law to lunch for her birthday, and I need to do certain things. I need to take my kids skiing and have a minute with my little kids.
yeah.
So will that change in a week? Probably. But I think it's okay to recognize I need a minute. I'm going to regroup, and then I will go back out and tackle the world and the workplace. But I think it's okay to have a moving target, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's your family and sometimes it's work, sometimes it's school, and your kids are going to be okay.
Yeah, good for you. I love that. And I think that is such a powerful perspective that we have to bring. I think sometimes we talk about work-life balance, we talk about creating a rhythm or a flow or
Mhm.
emotion. And I just think whatever word we use for it, work-life balance is impossible. Like
It is impossible.
I think there's for me a net positive, but I do think that like right now at this stage in my life, I can feel the moments where I'm not as present with my kids because I'm
Mhm.
just pushing through this master's program as long and
Right.
as fast as I can. And it does sting a little bit, like sometimes I don't always feel great about the decisions that I have to make, but I know it's a season and I know that my kids still see me and they know that I care about them and I'm still making an effort to make meaningful connections with them. Um, Even when it's hard, like even
Yeah,
when it feels like we're failing, like we're probably doing a little bit better than we think we are.
it's true. I'll ask my husband and say, "What do you think about this? How do you feel? Is this too much?"
Mm,
And he's a good compass for me. Am I in line?
mm,
And sometimes he'll say, "Hey, I got this." Many years of my recovery from my brain injury, that guilt can sometimes just be so
mm,
overwhelming. And
mm.
he would say, this is good for us. This is good for our kids to learn how to do the laundry. It's good for our kids to
Yeah.
learn how to do the dishes. It's good for them to see you work hard. And in that case, I wasn't working at all. I wasn't doing anything.
Mm.
But I think it's important to see that, yeah, sometimes our parents struggle. Sometimes our parents are going through school, and that's okay. When I was younger, I was in, I think, seventh grade, and my mom went to grad school.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
And
Yeah.
and so I've seen that, I've experienced it, and that was a huge shift for our family and a huge blessing.
Mm,
And I would do dinner, I would share it with my sister, we would prepare it every night, we would do the laundry every week, we would clean the house, all the things, and it was really good training. So I think it's important to shift that guilt, and sometimes guilt is there for a purpose and it's helpful to reprioritize. But I think it's also important to say, okay, what are my goals with my family and my spouse or your partner, and
yeah.
then kind of pivot as well. So do you have any advice, Rachel, for parents that are kind of struggling with that guilt with their career ambitions being a parent?
Um, I don't have perfect advice, but I can share a bit of what I've learned. I'll say too, for the folks who are here with us on their lunch hour, please don't hesitate to ask any questions. We're so grateful that you
Sure.
would be here with us. So if there's anything you want to hear, anything that has been just wrinkling your brain lately, let us know and we can share our thoughts on that as well. But to your point, I think kind of what I said, my my feelings of guilt have not gone away, and I think that's okay. Like you
Yeah.
said, guilt can be a forward driving emotion. It's when we allow guilt to paralyze us
Right.
or pull us backwards that we need to stop and say this isn't serving us and just let us go, let it go. I think to your point, too, when you were going through your own personal journey with your brain injury, the worst thing you could have done is compare yourself to your peers and
Right.
say, well, in their family, they're not learning how to do laundry yet. Or in my sister's family, she doesn't have to work and I do, or whatever that looks like for our individual circumstances. And I've just had to let that go entirely. I've had to say, for the last 4 years, my husband has been full-time stay-at-home dad, and he'll do freelance work here and there, but we've just had to say, this is what's working for our family right now
Right.
at the time. And there was a while there where close members of our family would kind of make comments to us like, well, when's he going to get another job? Or are you sure this is the best thing for your kids? Or Rachel, why are you choosing to be full-time away from your kids when, your husband can do it? And we just kind of have had to like totally let that go and say, together as a partnership, we feel right about what we're doing with our family at this time. And with you, you said you had that family council with your children,
Right.
and together as all of you felt right. And whatever your tribe, your circle looks like, whether it's, you're a single parent, whether you're a daughter, whether you're a caregiver to an elderly parent, whatever your group of people looks like, if you can find a solution that feels right to you, screw everyone else.
Right.
like just
No,
let it
it's true.
go, because
It's
it doesn't
true.
matter. And I think that's probably the advice that I would share. Anything else you would
I was
add?
just going to say there's times and seasons, right?
Yeah.
There was a time that I supported him during med school and residency and all the things. And, together we buckled down and got our loans paid off. But I see him supporting me now. And to a large extent, I wanted to sell my business when I got hurt. I'm like, I am
Mm,
done. And
yeah.
my husband just said, don't do it. You love this.
Ugh,
So it's sweet to see him support me and show up for me. And like you said, there's times that you show up for them.
yeah.
I grew up with a mom that worked,
Mm,
full time, and my mother-in-law didn't. And I can kind of see the pros and cons of both, and I love that my mother-in-law is home. I loved going to her house, and she always had food and she was always present. I think it's important that when you are there, you're present. Like I said, I was on a ski lift once and I'm answering messages, and my little kid said to me, "Mom, why are you working right now?" And I'm like, "You're right. There can be boundaries, and I think being an entrepreneur and a business owner, there are no boundaries. There's no work-life
mm,
balance, and it's really taking me a lot of um, there's a lot of intention, and I'm trying to be more mindful, which is kind of why I wanted my kids to have a voice. I don't want them to
yeah.
look back and think, oh, mom only cared about this. No, I care
Mm,
about them, and I want them to know that's my top priority. And then everything else can fill in. So,
mm. I respect that a lot. Anything that, I mean, I know you're in a bit of a unique
right.
organization, but is
Right.
there anything you feel like your organization has done to better support women in either developing that balance or really living into their authenticity?
Um, we have an all remote staff.
Right.
So everyone works from home. And we're trying to allow them that flexibility to be present for their kids, but also we encourage them to make sure that they either have a babysitter
Yeah.
or that they're working when their spouse is there, because otherwise it just hurts them and it hurts their work and it hurts the whole family. So it is important to have boundaries. It is important to try however they can to create a differentiation of, I'm working, I'm not working. I feel like for me, I'm like, well, I'm the business owner. I have to work all the time. And that's not the case,
Yeah.
right? Like we all know that it matters for everybody. But
Mhm.
in terms of, what I'm hoping to achieve with my staff is I am hoping to get bigger and better clients, to offer
Mm,
more benefits and higher pay, and, hopefully be able to help everybody on the team. So,
mm,
and I want them to grow. I want them to be promoted. I want them to keep learning. That's really important to me.
mm.
And if it's not a good fit, that's okay too.
Yeah.
One woman, she's like, I can't work remotely. I hate this. I need the connection. Even with all the Zooms, she needed to be in an
Yeah.
office. And that's okay too. And, you know, there's different needs for different people. And it's okay if one thing doesn't fit for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I respect that a lot. Maybe to just add one or two things I've done as an employee to make sure that I'm holding that balance. I'm pretty strict about my 9 to 5. Like if somebody says, "Hey, can we just grab a 5 o'clock meeting?" I say, "No,
That's
it can
awesome.
wait. It can wait till the morning. I think it's really important that men and women, everyone, that we put things on our calendars, like when you're going to the parent teacher conference, or
Mm.
set up your email autoresponder when you're on a holiday. I think it sends such a meaningful message when you are
Yeah.
upfront about putting those life priorities first. I had a colleague who put therapy on the calendar Mondays at 1 p.m. and he put it right there on his calendar. And I just thought it was such a powerful thing to do, to show other folks that they could also prioritize their
Right.
life, their relationships, whatever that looked like, and still be an efficient member of the
I
business.
love that. And this is a boundary, and it's okay. And when you blur that boundary, then people just keep pushing
Yeah.
against it, whether it's a client or a coworker,
Yeah.
and then you have nothing. So you have to really hold those firm. Is there anything else, Rachel, that you've learned in the last year or that you'd love to share?
Yeah. I think I thought a lot about the question you'd sent over about kind of rewriting the narrative. Society tells us perhaps what work life balance should look like for women, perhaps what roles we should fill, how we should show up at work, how much makeup we should wear, how tall we should be, how thin or not thin we should be. There's so many studies that show that the unconscious bias runs deep. And perhaps to echo the earlier sentiment, you cannot control that. Like, you
Yeah.
cannot control people around you. All you can do is live into your authenticity. And to me, I really view it as a gift that I'm hopefully able to give to other women. That when I show up as myself, when I say, "Hey, I'm leaving early because I will not miss my daughter's dance recital," that means that the next woman next to me can do the same.
Right.
And when I say, like, actually, I want to be in that room, I have some ideas about strategy. Even if someone in my role or title has not been invited into that room before, suddenly another woman sees that she can be confident in her own ideas and speak up for herself too. So I think you just got to show up. You've got to take the risks, and again, take care of yourself. Do it when and where it feels.
Right. For sure.
But I think it's a gift that you can give to other women to show up fully as you are.
I love that. And I think it's okay if women don't want to work. There's no
Yeah.
shame there. There shouldn't be any shame if we do want to work. It's okay if that shifts. If you're out of the workplace for 20 years and you want to dabble or get back into it, it's okay. And you can do it. I had no mentors early in my
Yeah.
career. I didn't know that there was this whole networking world. I didn't know there were all these events, and maybe there wasn't at the time, but my mentors were men, and I'm
Mm,
grateful for them. And I still sometimes call them for advice. Some of the CEOs I've worked with, hey, what do you think about this?
mm,
And I think it's important to work together as a team. Collectively, you talked about maybe, not looking at men as a challenge. And I think also looking at women as your
yeah.
ally,
Yeah.
instead of someone that's challenging you, work together.
Mhm.
And there's room for all of us in whatever capacity we want to show up. So anyways,
I love it.
it's great to have you join me,
Yeah.
Rachel. Thanks,
Of course,
especially
it was
early.
fun. I know. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.